You're probably watching the news thinking, how am I ever gonna buy a house in this market? And that's why today I'm going to discuss whether you should or should not buy a home in 2021. Hey everybody, my name is Devin Cook and welcome back to Dev Money. It's needless to say that 2021 has turned into a crazy year to buy a home. Home values are up over 19% since this time last year, and the average home is getting over 5 offers when it's listed to sell. And that's not even the crazy part. Often homes are getting 20 to 30 offers, and there was even a story where a San Francisco home got 112 offers and sold within 3 hours. And these aren't even offers just at asking price. Oftentimes these offers are many thousands of dollars over asking price, even soaring to $100,000 or more over what the sellers are looking to get. Sounds like a pretty good time to sell your home, right? So what's driving all of this nuttiness? Well, there's 2 primary factors. One is mortgage interest rates, and 2 is record low inventory levels. So first, let's talk about those interest rates. We are seeing historically low interest rates when compared to any time period in the past 20, 30, 40 years. The current interest rate is about 3% on a 30-year mortgage, but that dipped to as low as 2.65% earlier this year. Now, what this does is it causes homes to become more affordable and thus increasing demand. Now, the second factor, like I said, is low inventory levels. A balanced market is going to have about 6 months of inventory. That means that if 6 months goes by without any homes being added onto the market, all of those homes will have been sold. Today, on average, we're seeing around 3.5 months of inventory. In some areas where demand is even crazier, they're seeing inventory levels below a month or below a month and a half supply. And simple supply and demand economics will tell you that when supply is low and demand is high, the prices are going to go up. And that's exactly what we're seeing today. Now that we've gotten all this alarming news out of the way, let's talk. Because I know you're getting a lot of serious home buying FOMO right now because all of your friends are buying a house, your neighbors are buying a house, and you're sitting there in your apartment or in your parents' house thinking, maybe I should buy one too. So I'm gonna let you know whether or not you should act on that FOMO or whether you're just gonna have to sit with it for a little while. And I boiled it down to 3 crucial things that you need to consider when deciding to buy a house in 2021, 2022, or any year. And those 3 things that you need to consider are number 1, your current financial situation, number 2, the length of time that you're gonna stay in the house, and number 3, the home maintenance expenses. So we're gonna look at all of those in detail, and I'm gonna make the case for why you should or should not buy a house in 2021 based upon your individual situation. So the number 1 factor is whether or not you have the monetary capability right now to buy a house. As you're seeing from the market craziness, you're gonna have to bid over asking price to get the home that you want, and with home values up 19% on average, you're gonna be paying more than ever to get that same house. And to buy a home, you're gonna need at least 3% for your down payment, at least 2% for your closing costs, totaling 5% due at the closing table when you sign and buy the house. And you're gonna need at least a 620 credit score, though you can get away with a 580, but you're gonna have to put more money down. So what that means is on a $350,000 house, which is right around the national average, you're gonna need $17,500 as well as money for a survey and an inspection. So it's really very simple. If you do not have those funds available, don't buy a house. If you don't have those funds available, don't go take out a personal loan of some sort. Don't go borrow money from friends or family just to get into a house. It's really just not a smart idea. Now, if you have that money available, you're comfortable spending it, and you're not gonna be house poor by doing it, then go ahead, get the house, enjoy it, and don't regret it. Now, the second thing you need to consider is the length of the time that you're gonna be owning this house. The reason that this is so important is because if you buy a home and you sell it within a relatively short period of time, the expenses that come from selling a home can end up wiping out all of that appreciation and can end up even costing you money just to get out of the house. We have seen a lot of really crazy home appreciation in the last year, but no one's gonna argue that that's gonna last forever. So don't buy a home now and expect it to appreciate almost 20% by this time next year. That certainly could happen if this market continues the way it is, but at some point it's gonna correct and we're gonna stop seeing those crazy numbers. So if you assume the typical average appreciation of about 3% a year and the expenses to sell a home, which are right around 9%, that means that you need to own the home for at least 3 years just to break even when you sell it. And I would say that with those numbers, you should probably stay in the home for about 5 years just to make it worth your while. So if you're really trying to FOMO your way into a home just to get some of that appreciation that your friends are getting, that your family's getting, that certainly could happen. You could end up on top and sell within a year or 2, but also the market could correct and you could end up losing money. So in my opinion, if you're gonna stay in the house for 3 to 5 years or more, you're better off probably buying the house, enjoying it, gaining that appreciation, and then you're gonna be able to realize that appreciation when you go to sell the house many years later. If you're just gonna be in the home for for a year or two, I honestly would say don't buy the house unless you're okay taking that gamble and potentially losing a lot of money in the process. Now, the third and final decision that you need to consider are the maintenance costs of owning a home. Because buying a home isn't as simple as just paying your down payment, paying your closing costs, signing on the dotted line, and calling it good. You not only have your mortgage each month that you need to pay for, but you're also gonna have different maintenance expenses that are gonna come up that you need to pay for. Otherwise, you're gonna hurt the value of your home, and you're gonna notice that when you go to sell it. The typical rule of thumb is that you need to budget for about 1% of the home's value each year in expenses. So on that same $350,000 home, you're gonna need to budget about $3,500 a year, or about $300 a month in expenses just to keep the home running and making sure it's not falling apart. Also be aware that if your home is newer, those expenses could be significantly less. But if the home is older, especially quite a bit older, those expenses can be significantly more. So be aware of that when you're deciding which home to buy. So make sure to take the maintenance costs into consideration when you're buying a home, because if you can barely afford the mortgage and you're just having to stretch every month to make that work, then chances are when something breaks, which it inevitably will, you're not gonna be able to fix it, or you won't be able to fix it as well as it needs to be, and you're gonna take a hit on the home's value when you go to sell it. But if you can pay the mortgage each month without breaking a sweat, and if something breaks, you don't really worry about it because you have plenty of money to pay for it, then chances are you're in a good spot and you should go ahead and buy the house. So overall, remember when you're going to buy a home to consider the totality of the scenario. Don't just look at the home's price, the interest rate, and the mortgage payment and say, you're good to go, it works, you can make it happen. Make sure to consider the time frame that you're planning on spending in the home, as well as the maintenance expenses that are gonna come up just to keep the home running. And really just consider your personal situation. Does it make sense to buy the house? Do you have the money? Are you gonna be living in it long enough? Is this an emotional decision or is this a logical decision? And if you follow all of those guidelines, I'm pretty sure you're gonna end up on top. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and let me know in the comments down below if you're gonna be buying a home in 2021 or if you're gonna wait for another year.